when you've identified these programmed behaviors and beliefs that are holding you back. Finance is another area that is very common for people to have self-limiting beliefs and maybe want to do something about that or change the pattern. So you're going to evaluate if it's serving you or if it deserves to be changed. And then you're going to make a commitment to a new habit that includes new behavior patterns, of course, and also new self-talk. Okay, we talked before about overcoming flawed subconscious programming that was largely integrated between ages of 0 to 7 in childhood. And speaking of this flawed subconscious childhood programming, in the book The Big Leap, author, psychologist Gay Hendricks presents a pretty compelling argument that each of us bump up against what he calls an upper limit in our life. And that is, quote, an inner thermostat setting that determines how much love, success, and creativity we allow ourselves to enjoy. Once programmed, our upper limit thermostat setting holds us back from enjoying all the love, financial abundance, and creativity that's rightfully ours, end quote. So we have a setting that when we reach that, we figure out ways to bring ourselves back down and bring in trouble, struggle, disappointment into our lives. If things are going wonderfully well, something always happens. And then my car broke down after my wonderful day or my wonderful weekend. Can you relate to that type of thinking or actual happenings? I can at times. I remember I used to keep track, especially when I was younger, how things were going relating to my athletic career, my studies, my social life, and kind of watching on the barometer where each dial was. And sometimes when a few things were going great, then I would start to get stressed about my studies, or my social life wasn't happening the way I wanted to, but I was acing all my classes, and I was always kind of looking at this as a scoreboard. And perhaps you can identify where you harbor limiting beliefs about love, financial abundance, or creativity. You hear people saying how I have such terrible luck choosing boyfriends, and the last 3 of them were all pretty lame. I remember my show with Jonathan Aslay, the dating expert, where he talked about, he wrote a book and based his work on this incredible binge of dating and chronicling his experience where he dated 54 women over a pattern of a period of a couple of years. And his great quote on my show where he says, all 54 of those women had one thing in common. Do you know what it was? That's right. They dated me. And so if he's thinking about his bad luck and how this happens over and over, there you go with a self-limiting belief. We also generally freely verbalize things like, oh, I'm terrible with spreadsheets. Can you help me? I can't sing. I'm a terrible singer. I don't like art. I'm not good at art. I don't do art. Actually, I would probably put myself in that category where I never had a huge interest in typical art efforts. But in recent years, I've become a huge enthusiast of clay sculpture, and I only do dogs. That's my only thing I think I've ever done in the clay studio. So I hand shape a statue of a dog. Mostly my dogs do, but I do other dogs by request. But I have to say that because of this repetition, where I've done probably a couple dozen dogs, you shape it by hand and then you let it dry. It goes in the kiln. It gets fired to become hard. Then you paint it. Goes in the kiln again, and it comes out with this beautiful, glossy, finished work of a little dog statue. I have become extremely good at shaping a dog clay sculpture by hand, and it gives me so much joy and so much pleasure, and I don't have any of that false modesty or hesitancy to say, you know what, I'm really good at sculpting clay dogs, and I love it, and it gives me a great joy, and so on and so forth. So I've broken free from whatever self-limiting belief I was harboring and the behavior pattern of being averse to art projects or judging my own work to be inferior or what have you. So if you can think about some of those things that you verbalize and make a choice that you want to break free from these flawed patterns, again, we bring it into our awareness, and then we start to habituate something else. So when you've identified these program behaviors and beliefs that are holding you back, finance is another area that is very common for people to have self-limiting beliefs and maybe want to do something about that or change the pattern. So you're going to evaluate if it's serving you or if it deserves to be changed. And then you're going to make a commitment to a new habit that includes new behavior patterns, of course, and also new self-talk. So Jack Canfield, the best-selling author of the Chicken Soup series, one of the best-selling authors of all time when you count all the millions or hundreds of millions of copies that have been sold of Chicken Soup books, and he's a big retreat organizer and peak performance expert. I love his work. He recommends identifying the belief that you would like to change, determining how the belief limits you, and then deciding how you would rather be, act, or feel. And once you do that, you can then create what he calls a turnaround statement that affirms or gives you permission to be, act, or feel in a new way. Implant the statement in your subconscious mind by repeating the statement for 2 or 3 minutes several times a day for a minimum of 30 days. 2 or 3 minutes several times a day. That's a lot of work. I'll bet you there's not a huge percentage of follow through when people are suggested to create turnaround statements and spew them 2 to 3 minutes several times a day. But I really love this concept, and I've been working hard to integrate it. I don't think I'm up to 2 to 3 minutes several times a day, honestly, but I create these turnaround statements. I write them down. I look at them. I say them when the matter comes up. For example, let's say finances. Here's my turnaround statement. We don't have to tell you the details of how I got to the point of needing or wanting a turnaround statement, but mine is I am in complete control of my finances, and I generate wealth in an easy and relaxed manner. I got that, I think, from Mark Allen, who's a book publisher and peak performance expert, and he appeared on the El Russ show. That was a great message from him because that's how he lives his life. So he talks about how little he works and how much wealth he has generated from just backing off and taking more days off and starting his day at 1 p.m. instead of 9 a.m. Pretty funny guy, but I really like that. I generate wealth in an easy and relaxed manner, and I'm in complete control of my finances. Turnaround statement. Now, if you think that this is nonsense and it's never going to work or have a real impact, guess what? You're absolutely right. So if you don't believe, if you don't want to give it a chance, you can hold on to that fixed and rigid belief that probably emanates from flawed subconscious programming and go about your merry way. But I'm super open to this, and I love to try it, and I love to encourage you to think about some turnaround statements that you can create, as well as what we could call turnaround behaviors. So if you start your day with a low energy morning where you feel like you're frittering away time or not doing something that would improve your life, commit to a morning exercise routine and getting the dog out the door or getting yourself out the door for some easy stretches or something that doesn't take that long. Guess what? You can do it. Go for it. Bite off a real small challenge to prove to yourself that you can do it, and then keep going and bringing more turnaround statements into your life. And when you bump up against that upper limit, perhaps take notice and wonder or say out loud, gee, maybe it's time for me to break through to higher limits and more abundance, more happiness, more freedom, whatever it is. All right. Thanks for listening, watching.